What's up, Detroit? This is the Riles and Riley Rundown, back for another episode. Okay, week one is in the books for our Detroit Lions, and there was some,
how we expected.
no, there was some good, and there was a lot of ugly. But let's go ahead and start off with the good. I mean, we did win it, 27-23. Ford Field was electric for the first game of the season. The running game looked pretty good. I mean, no one really expected that, but I mean,
Yeah, that's a nice positive. I kind of saw it going in. I think Kevin Smith, when he stays healthy, is a lot better than people realize. He was a little weaker when he was here the first time. He seems a lot faster. He gets to the hole, doesn't just fall down. Even Stafford, I mean, of course we're going to get to the bad about Stafford, but Stafford still had for having 3 interceptions, he had a solid game. 255 yards and touchdown still. And he was good when it mattered most, which is always important.
yeah.
One thing I found interesting that I actually read after the game is that this was Stafford's 6th fourth quarter comeback in his career, which is insane because what does he have? Career wins like 13, 14?
Exactly. My biggest thing that I found shocking in this game, we were actually talking about it on the ride home, was the fact that the 4 or 5 drives that we went for that took about 6 or 7 minutes, we did not score. And it seemed like when Stafford got into the hurry-up part of that, so when he did the quick snap and then the throw, that's when the interceptions came. But when he went to the hurry-up offense and was just going down
moving
the
it
field,
down the field quicker.
yeah,
he did better with
we
that.
scored 2 touchdowns and probably had about 185 yards.
And now we're not suggesting that they moved to a nothing but that quick offense, because they did that a lot last year. And that's how they scored a lot of points last year, by moving the ball quickly, getting the deep throws. And people were complaining the offense was getting off the field too quick, which is a good point. But you need to make sure you can have some of those long drives.
Yep.
And you probably want to have it fairly even.
Yep.
But when you need to score, there's nothing wrong with moving it faster if that's what you do.
Well, not only that, but when you do move the ball a little bit faster after going after one of those long drives, it does free up Calvin a little bit more, too, because the defense can't get into their normal stance.
For those of you who caught the Sunday night game, Peyton, they showed a stat, I think it was towards the end of the fourth quarter, he had 3 no-huddle drives where they picked up 3 touchdowns, and he had 3 drives where they actually had huddles, ran a regular offense, and they didn't score once.
Exactly. It really catches the defense off guard.
It does change things up. But again, you need to have a mixture of that.
Yeah.
One thing, man, that I was really impressed with, and of course, got to keep in mind this is not the strongest offensive team in the world, the St. Louis Rams, that is. Defense looked much better than they have in a long time.
Yeah, they look tenacious. If Sue and Fairley can play like they did yesterday, and the entire defensive line, if they can I mean, Steven Jackson isn't as elite of a running back as he used to be, but he's still top tier. I mean, he's not going to be your record-breaking running back like everybody thought he was going to be when he first came into the NFL. But, I mean, he's definitely still a legit back. Well, and to hold him to, I think it was 56 yards, I mean, that's...
Well, yeah, and like you mentioned, he's not, he was elite for a little while. He's starting to slow down a little bit, and he's still a very good running back.
Yep.
I'd still put him in the tops in the league. But let me ask you this, and I haven't gone back and I haven't looked to see. It may be hard to find. But when was the last time you saw the Lions lead the game in rushing?
Probably the last time you saw Stafford have 3 interceptions in a game.
I don't know that I've seen that before. I mean, don't get me wrong, they only ran for 83 yards, but it does help add to your balance. You want to have a little more than that because they still only ran the ball 18 times. I would like to see a little more rushing. I mean, I don't want to see them go much over 20, 25. I mean, 25 carries is probably where I'd like to see them.
I'm going to ask you this one now. When's the last time you saw a Lions defense only give up 251 yards?
Right, that defense. The defensive play was impressive. And that's without Chris Houston. Bill Bentley missed a portion of the game. That was out Louis Delmas.
Yep.
One thing that I want to go to the defense, and I don't like that we had to due to one cornerback injury. Well, I guess 2 when you include Houston and Bentley. All of a sudden, we had to play with Jonte Green. Not a big fan of Jonte Green, as you know, Tom. Needs some cornerback depth. I mean, I like our starters a lot better now with Drayton Florence and Chris Houston once Houston gets back.
And mental note to all of our fans, if you go to the game and complain about Jonte Green, you probably will get into an argument with someone in the crowd, just to let you know.
Yeah, I got in a fight. Well, not a real fight, but yeah, I got an argument over Jonte Green. I understand he's 6th-round draft pick. I mean, doesn't mean he doesn't have potential. But you tell me how many teams right now are starting 6th-round draft picks.
Definitely.
Playing 6th-round draft picks.
Yeah.
And but anyways, the team, overall, the defense looked good. No major complaints with the defense. We didn't get the pressure we had 2 years ago. on the quarterback, but we absolutely stepped it up from last year.
We definitely got the pressure when we needed to get the pressure,
right.
though.
We still got some pressure. You'd like to see a little bit more. I think Fairley's going to really, really show us some special ability as the season goes on. He looked good last year when he did get to play. He looked good this year. That rotation on the D-line, especially at defensive tackle, that's going to be fierce. Yep. Sue, Williams, Fairley, and Hill. I mean, you're moving those guys in and out. What was really impressive about them is one of our big issues was the fact that we couldn't. We sold out on the pass.
Yep.
We didn't do that this game, I should say. I don't know why I said this year, but they look good. They were able to stop the run. The D-line was probably the number one factor in stopping the run, which used to be one of our weaknesses.
Yep. The best thing about what I saw in this game, honestly, I mean, with all the bad that went with Stafford, you got to look at this way. He threw the ball for 48 times, and he did get his 355 yards still. But look at our run game. You had only 13 attempts and still got 62 yards, and 2 of our touchdowns came with the run. I mean, that's huge. If this team can balance it out, I mean, it's not as balanced as a lot of teams are with the 50-50, 60-40. This is a balanced team right here for the Lions. I mean, when you got Stafford throwing the ball about 50 times a game, and then Kevin Smith, and then the other backs running for about...
And you had a lot of short passes, which does lead to a similar style of a running game.
That I am going to get...
And I want to actually mention this right now. We have been talking about how there was bad in the game. Honestly, I don't see the bad. The bad in the game was Stafford's 3 interceptions. Yep. I don't think too many people are figuring out about those interceptions. If they are, I'm going to be right out there. Maybe be a little harsh on this one, but I think they don't know much about football, if that's the case.
I think the main reason why people are flipping out is because where the interceptions happened. I mean, you cannot have those turnovers where they happen. That's one thing Stafford does.
But he's not going to do that on a regular basis.
But that's one thing Stafford does have to improve on. If it is a quick snap and you are wanting to run a quick play, you have to look where you're throwing the ball. Because, I mean, when the ball was thrown, Brendan and I both knew it was interception.
Right,
we were surprised it wasn't going pick 6. I mean, it was very, very obvious.
But what I'm saying is people who are flipping out, I mean, I understand getting mad about the one game and having a bad game, but there are people who are looking and saying, uh-oh, is he going to be like that this year? Was last year a fluke?
Yep.
But, I mean, he only threw 16 incomplete passes.
Yeah, and he only threw for 355 yards with those 3 interceptions. So, I mean...
He threw 16 incompletions. Take out those 3 interceptions and then the rest of the incompletions. I couldn't find the number on drops. I looked for it. He had a lot of drop passes as well.
Pettigrew had at least 2 or 3. I mean, it was just...
overall, he had a decent game. I don't expect him to do that much. Some people say he'll do it in San Francisco, but we'll talk about that later on in the week.
That's one thing I want to get at. Brandon Pettigrew, I mean, this guy could honestly be one of the elite tight ends in this league if he could actually learn how to catch the balls that are catchable. I mean, he did save us in that last drive. He had probably about 3 catches in that drive that drove us down the field when Calvin was getting covered heavy. But, I mean, there were at least 2 or 3 passes that were right in his hands. I mean, the one where he had a dive on was Stafford's fault. That was an overthrow, and he had a dive. But, there were 2 or 3 that Pettigrew
even if he doesn't ever make it to that elite status, we were talking about it yesterday, that, as of right now, he doesn't look like a first-round tight end. First-round tight ends, honestly, should look like Gronk and...
Vernon Davis.
Those kind of guys. But you know what? He's still... He has value. He's absolutely... I mean, yesterday he had 5 receptions for 77 yards.
And he's a very aggressive blocker, or run block, and pass blocker for...
He's still a good player. He's still a young player. He came in that same draft as Stafford.
Yep.
He's got some room to improve still. Pettigrew doesn't concern me too much. Honestly, really, looking at this whole game, I don't have much to complain about.
No,
they only won by 4 points. But, I mean, a win's a win. And honestly, if it wasn't... People don't realize how much we dominated this game.
No.
If you look at the stats, I mean, we really dominated this game.
I think people are going to be most upset with the fact that we won by 4 points to the St. Louis Rams.
Right.
And, I mean, like you said, if you take out those 3 interceptions by Stafford, this game easily could have been 41-21.
It all becomes questionable. Stafford, I mean, and I think we both know the answer to that one, but will Stafford throw interceptions like this on a regular basis? No. Or is he going to be where he was last year with 15... maybe 20 on the high end at the end of the season.
This was the first game. It was he might have had pregame jitters. Who knows? I mean, this is the first year that he's come into a team in the NFL to where they have a legit shot at being a Super Bowl contender. And maybe, who knows? Maybe all the guys had jitters, and Stafford was the one who it affected the most. I mean, just because he has one bad game does not mean you can write this guy off. I mean, he showed.
I don't think anyone's writing him off, but
he showed that
people may think that he wasn't quite what he was last year. And we talked about, is he elite? And obviously his game doesn't help show our point that we believe he is. But, I mean, everyone does this. Drew Brees does this. Aaron Rodgers does this. I mean, all the best quarterbacks do have these games occasionally. Usually against better defenses, I'll admit that. But, I mean, we talked about it going in that their secondary is not too bad. I mean, Jenkins looked good. Cortland Finnegan's always good.
Well, here's one big thing that I want to point out. You've got Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Matt Stafford. Those were the four that we were pretty much comparing for the elite top 5 quarterbacks, top 4 quarterbacks in the league. Drew Brees lost yesterday in Washington. Still had a good game, threw 2 picks, though. Aaron Rodgers did not look like himself. Had a bad game. They lost. That's 2 losses right there. Brady, yes, he dominated Tennessee. Stafford, he did not dominate like we're used to, but he still threw for 355 yards, and his team got the win.
You don't want to have to see this team come back on a regular basis.
Right.
But it's nice to know they can. Yeah. And they've shown they can. Really, they got that special feeling about them that a lot of times, and I'm not saying the Super Bowl team right now, although I do think they have the potential. A lot of those great teams that go on those runs are the teams that have the ability to come back because they know they're never out of a game.
Yeah.
It'll be very telling what happens next week. I'm excited for next week's show, both of them, as well as the game.
I was happy that we ran into that guy yesterday after the game who said that he turned off the game because he was so tired of watching he gave it up on the game. This is a team that you cannot do that on. I mean, look at what happened in Dallas last year. We were down by 2 scores at least. I think it was 3.
I think it was 20.
Yeah, and we came back, and if you turn that game off, you missed one of the best games of the year. I mean, you cannot write this team off anymore. Just because they're down, when you have a Stafford, when you have a Pettigrew, when you have a Johnson, I mean, you're not going to be able to do that. And right now, I want to kind of switch things up a little bit. We're going to go with mine and Brendan's play of the game, as you will. Just both of us are going to shout out our play of the game. I'm going to go first. I think the play of the game, honestly, was the Calvin catch, the deep throw.
I was considering that one myself.
I mean, with Stafford not doing what we're all used to, I mean, being so elite, as we want to call him, he needed to have a big play. And honestly, Stafford did not throw a good ball on that play, but Megatron did what he does best and made that pass look like it was catchable and caught it, brought it down, and that really changed the momentum in this game. I mean, they got down the field. They were able to get the field goal. I mean, they weren't able to get the touchdown on it like we'd wished. But, I mean...
I really don't have one major play of the game. Honestly, there weren't a whole lot of huge plays by either team, really, that you could say that was a turning point of the game. But it's actually very uncommon. You usually do have them. I actually got to go to that last possession, and I couldn't pick out one. One of the Brandon Pettigrew plays, I believe he had 3 receptions on that final drive, most of which he did get open. But we did talk about he makes some drops. I mean, you could definitely argue the Kevin Smith play. But if I'm the Kevin Smith play at the end of the game, that is. If I'm gonna give that to him, I don't know if you saw on ESPN they were showing today the Calvin factor.
Yeah.
The defender had to choose between helping double coverage on Calvin or leaving Kevin Smith wide open, or taking Kevin Smith, and he chose to double team Calvin.
Yep. Watching that game, it was shocking how many times the Rams lined up with 2 people on Calvin and would leave somebody open.
They put a lot of attention on Calvin Johnson, and he still put up 6 receptions for 110 yards.
Brendan mentioned it yesterday at the game. They were on those 3 picks that Stafford threw. Probably on all 3 of them, there was a guy open because
on the third one. That third one was the most aggravating to me. I was staring at Titus Young personally.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, you can go back and watch the replay if you'd like. That was actually the play Titus Young got his personal foul. And, you ask me, I would have been pretty frustrated, too. He had some room. He really did. And when the ball was thrown, I was like, where's he throwing it? I mean, Calvin drew a lot of attention, which he will. And that's why some people don't think he'll do what he's done in the past. He still put up 110 yards.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not like he didn't do anything. Yeah, he didn't get the touchdown, but that's because he wasn't really...
He didn't get a touchdown.
He didn't get thrown to in the end zone.
He didn't get a touchdown, but a lot of his catches were what made us get touchdowns.
Right.
I mean, he had 2 or 3 catches that kept the drive alive in that last drive, and just that was why we scored the touchdown, because he was able to get us downfield. Unlike Pettigrew, he was catching everything that was thrown to him.
Oh yeah, I don't. Did he even have a drop?
I don't think he had a drop pass the entire game.
So I want to go to something that we probably should have mentioned earlier. Penalties. Only 3.
Yeah, I'm very impressed. I mean,
I don't know if they did that all last year.
Yeah, and the best part about it is, yes, Titus Young did have the 15-yard penalty.
It was a convenient time.
Yeah, it was very convenient. It was after an interception, after the touchdown. All that happened was the field goal basically got kicked into the crowd. And
no, it didn't, though.
It didn't.
We actually got the ball at the 25-yard line.
Yeah.
But the penalties were very... I don't even remember what they were. And to be honest, usually last year you could look at a Lions game and point out 4 or 5 stupid penalties.
Yep.
And that was the only one you could argue was stupid, and it came at a convenient time.
And that was with Fairley and Sue both being involved in this game, and they were very involved in this game too. And it was getting chippy. I mean, that game
It got a little chippy. We got a little nervous, but it didn't get too bad.
No, and I want to compliment the team. I mean, they did really good.
If they keep those penalties down, that's honestly, I didn't pick them. I
factor.
did not pick them to make the playoffs. If they keep those penalties down, and for the most part show you everything else from last year, this team's going to be a playoff team.
Yep, and
they're going to win 11, 12 games.
If their run defense can do what they did yesterday, and actually their whole defense, if their whole defense can play like they did,
I was excited by their defense. I'm not going to get too excited because I don't expect them to do that on a regular basis.
Right.
Because if they do, this team is dominant. This is a 14-win team.
Yep.
Honestly. But I don't expect their defense to do that. I expect their defense to be better than last year.
We were both impressed though with Bill Bentley when he was in the game.
I think Bill Bentley's very good.
Yeah,
he's still a rookie and he's a 3rd-round draft pick, but I think he's gonna be very good.
One of the most underrated plays of that game was it was a screen pass with Bradford out to Steven Jackson. Steven Jackson had a wide open field. Bentley was the only one blocking him from the end zone, and Bentley just laid him out. Well, it was a great play.
For anybody listening who listened to our post-draft talk, I mentioned a guy who reminded me. Actually, I believe it was Greenwood, but Bentley as well, who both reminded me a lot of Cortland Finnegan of the St. Louis Rams, previously the Tennessee Titans. I think that Bentley he showed it in the preseason. He showed it now. He stays on his man. He's a good tackler. He's fast. He's tall. He's got all the things that you want in a cornerback. You wish he wasn't your 3rd-string cornerback right now, but this defense is definitely looking better than last year so far.
Yep. I want to throw it out there real quick. I mean, this is very early to do this, I know, but I am interested to see what you guys think. We just played a cornerback in which we honestly could have had in the draft. It was Janoris Jenkins. He had an interception. I think he returned it for the touchdown.
No, he didn't.
Touchdown. He was the first
returned it to like the
interception.
35 or so.
Yeah, he was in the game yesterday. He did have a key factor in the game. He did pick off the ball in the really convenient time. Riley Reef did not play yesterday, so we can't really.
Did that get in at all?
I don't think Reef got in at all.
I didn't personally notice if he got in or not.
He might have, but if you guys know that he did,
well,
you can
please let
correct
us
me.
know.
Yeah, but and just let me know, who would you rather have after game 1, Riley Reef or Janoris Jenkins? Because both of them were possibilities. At our first pick.
Janoris Jenkins at the first pick didn't make sense.
It didn't, but now that you see what he's doing, did we miss out on what could be a gold
it's
mine? I mean,
way too early for that one. I don't even think. I mean, you can go ahead and answer those questions. Tell us what you think. But I mean, we haven't seen anything out of really either of them yet. We did see a pick out of Janoris Jenkins, but it's too early. Not only because we're too early in the season. People didn't really question whether or not Janoris Jenkins had the capability to play in the.
We questioned his integrity.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't know if he's going to stay out of trouble.
Yep.
If he stays out of trouble, he would have absolutely been worth the 1st-round draft pick, or at least that's what everyone believes.
Yep.
But something else that we keep, there's a lot of stuff to talk about on this game. Something we haven't mentioned yet. 10 receivers caught a pass from Stafford yesterday, including himself.
Yep.
That I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. You'd love to see Calvin get the ball a little bit more.
I don't like Stafford catching the ball. But,
No, me neither.
I mean, because that honestly could have been a pick if it weren't for our offensive lineman who destroyed the defense.
But you managed to move. He only completed 32. Don't get me wrong. 32 is a lot of completions.
Yeah.
32 passes to 10 receivers, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's impressive. And guys, who does that? Do you see the mid level? Do you see Matt Ryan do that? Do you see Phillip Rivers do that?
Yeah.
Do you see Jay Cutler do that? You see only really the elite quarterbacks do that.
Yep, exactly. And what you also saw yesterday, which is what elite quarterbacks do, is he hit 3 tight ends, and all 3 tight ends had a good game. I mean, Heller wasn't as much.
2 for 19 is not bad.
But Scheffler had a pretty good game. Pettigrew had a really good game. I mean, Pettigrew helped us win that game with his 3 catches in the final drive. I do like where Stafford's going with this. I mean, he even on the 3 or even with the 3 picks, he looked as accurate yesterday as I've ever seen him. I mean, even the 3 picks, he was trying to basically fit it in a hole.
We've talked about
it just
this.
didn't work.
I don't know if we talked about it on the show or not. We both believe, at least I think I believe it more than Tom does, but I don't think Stafford has a whole lot more to improve on as far as his throw. He's got the strength. He's got the spiral. He's got the placement. He's all of the physical parts of the game he's got down very well. And he's only 23, 24 years old. I think he's 24 years old now. But what I really hope to see him improve on is the mental part of the game. I want to see him be a lot like Peyton Manning. I want to see him have control of the offense at the line of scrimmage. I want to see him know when, like Peyton Manning is the only quarterback who I've really seen do this on a consistent basis. He did it a lot in Indy. We'll see him do it in Denver as well. When he noticed a mismatch, he didn't let the defense get in a switch.
Yep.
As soon as he saw a mismatch, he made them play until they either called a timeout or they had to, for whatever reason, had to have time to get it in.
Yeah, one thing I mean, I love Stafford, don't get me wrong. I think he is going to be an elite quarterback. You've all heard me say that before. One thing I do want to see him work on, though, is checking off defenders. I mean, he doesn't have to throw for the first or second option on every play. Let the play break down a little bit. Let your running or receivers come back to you. I mean, hit somebody when they're open. You don't have to force things, and I feel like sometimes Stafford can force things. I mean, a lot of times it does work out because of the arm that he has when he forces it. But
yeah, he's always reminded me of Brett Favre. He's too confident sometimes and makes throws.
And that's where we got yesterday. When he went on that first drive, I think up until that interception, he was pretty much like
he was
8
perfect.
for 9.
I think you're right.
I think he was either 8 for 9 or 9 for 9, and then the incomplete pass was the interception. I mean, it was very, very disheartening to see that happen. However, that's only going to get better as time goes on. I mean, he's going to be able to look at that game film and say, okay, I need to look at that receiver first before I throw it. Don't just snap the ball and throw it to him. Check off the defender and then look to the left side. I mean, Calvin could have been open for a fade route, or Pettigrew could have been open coming across the middle, but he wouldn't have known that because right when he snapped the ball, it was over there. And that might not be Stafford. It honestly looked like that was a design play from the sideline.
It's going to be interesting to see how Stafford progresses, especially with the receiving talent he's got. I mean, like I said, I don't think he's going to get much better physically. But, I mean, when teams handle Calvin the way they do, he's got so many other weapons. I really don't see how teams feel okay doing it. As time moves on, I think we're going to see Pettigrew. I think we're going to see Pettigrew get better. I think we're going to see.
I think you're about to
become a real factor.
You're about to see Pettigrew.
Oh, and keep in mind, Ryan Broyles didn't play.
Yeah, I think you're about to see Pettigrew emerge into not as good of a version as Gronk and Jimmy Graham and Hernandez.
Yeah, but he doesn't need to be.
But he is going to be one of those tight ends that you can rely on to get the big catch when you need them. And I also think you are about to see Titus Young emerge into a Wes Welker type player. Because Titus Young...
I would have liked to see Titus Young get the ball a little more yesterday.
Yeah, I would have too, but I feel like Titus Young is very, very capable of becoming a Wes Welker. I mean,
Stafford has so many options, and they're young options. This team's going to be very good. As long as they can add some depth on the defensive side of the ball, and there are contract issues coming up in the near future.
We mentioned it yesterday, and I want to throw out this one too. I was very, very pleased with the play call yesterday.
Yep.
It was I mean, the first run of the game, or the first play of the game was a reverse, and that wasn't the only reverse we had. And pretty much every reverse went for positive yards, I think, except for Steph Logan had one maybe that didn't.
Stephon Logan had one, or no, I'm sorry, look at receptions. Stephon Logan had one rush for 1 yard. Nate Burleson had one rush for 6 yards, and Titus Young had one rush for 11 yards.
Yeah, those aren't huge reverses, but in the NFL, your biggest thing with the NFL doing a reverse is you want to go forward, not backward.
Right.
And that's exactly what they did. I mean, they did work out. One of them went for a first down. I think it was Burleson.
I believe it was Titus Young. Titus Young, was it Burleson? Hold on, I'll check that out. Yeah, it was Titus Young, I believe.
Okay.
Actually, they both did. Titus Young had the one midway through the game for 11 yards on a 1st and 10, and Burleson was on a 2nd and 4 or something like that, where he picked up 6 yards.
Either way, who it was, I mean, it was just nice to see.
And you saw a lot of short passing. I would have liked to see a little more deep ball.
Yes, definitely. I mean, we only honestly had 2 balls that probably traveled farther.
And the one was the Calvin, the deep ball you mentioned earlier, as your play of the game.
And it wasn't really.
He didn't have he wasn't that open. It was
Calvin
single
being
coverage.
Calvin.
It was single coverage, and Stafford's like, "Hey, you may as well throw it up there."
It was Calvin being Calvin, and if you're gonna have, I told you guys this last week before before the game that if Calvin's 1-on-1, you're not gonna stop the guy, and the Rams got that proven to them right there. I mean, when you play Calvin 1-on-1 deep, you're not gonna be successful at all. I mean, they literally.
And then when you don't give him 1-on-1, then you got guys like Pettigrew, Burleson, Scheffler, Smith, Heller, Young, so many other weapons. Broyles didn't play. We don't know what he'll be. People like him. They like his potential.
We had one of our buddies yesterday over for the Denver game after we got home and everything. And he actually mistakenly said that on the throwdown field, Calvin had his head ripped off. He didn't have his head ripped off, but he had his helmet ripped off, and he still made that grab. I mean, there was a lot of contact on that play. Calvin's not going to get pass interference very often because he makes it look so easy.
You won't even see it.
And exactly, and you won't even see Calvin complain because of that fact, because he doesn't hardly ever miss a catch. But the main thing I was getting at with that, yes, you can rip Calvin's head off, and he's still going to make the play.
Yeah, to give Calvin even more love than we already are. I think Calvin Johnson, and keep in mind, I've only been watching football for so long. I mean, plenty of time to see guys we know over the last few years, but yeah. Calvin Johnson, I think, is one of the most physically gifted wide receivers to ever play the game.
Definitely. I agree.
Talent, there's obviously arguments with talent, but physically, Calvin Johnson is up there with very few other guys.
We did throw it out there yesterday, or not yesterday, but the last time we did our show about the final score predictions. We do appreciate you guys for chiming in there. We had one on YouTube and we had one on our Facebook page.
Make sure to like us on Facebook.
Yeah, unfortunately, neither of you guys got it right. We both saw the Rams scoring what you guys had, but apparently the Rams didn't.
Yeah, we didn't expect the Rams to give that kind of offensive
And then we
play.
also had a few people type in on Facebook a couple of their comments. Actually, it was pretty much just one person, but just all you guys remember after the game and stuff, let us know what you think. We did throw it out there yesterday about what you guys thought of the game. Ian Rye did type in. This is from Ian. The play in the trenches was great on both sides of the ball. I agree with that. Linebackers did solidly. Corners and safeties were a bit iffy, though, especially on deep plays. We did touch on that. Corners do have to get a little bit better on the deep balls, but that's just going to come with more practice.
Especially when Houston gets back, you're going to have much more strength.
I mean, if Dalmas and Houston can come back 100%, this team, if they can play the defense that they played yesterday, is going to be tenacious.
Well, like I said, if this defense played the way it did yesterday, which I said again, I don't expect. I'm not predicting the Lions go 14-2.
Yep.
But if this defense plays the way they did yesterday all season, this is probably a 13-14 win team.
Definitely. But Ian, we do appreciate all the comments. We're not going to read your whole paragraph because you did write a lot, but we do appreciate it. And everybody, please feel free to comment. Our Facebook page is the Riles and Riley Rundown. Be sure to go like us. And we will be back next week to preview
later on this week.
Yeah, later on this week, the Handshake Part 2. San Francisco 49ers and the Detroit Lions. Again, this week, write in on Facebook your predictions of the score. Again, you have till noon on Sunday to go ahead and give us the final score. I'll give you guys a little bit more time to do it this week since I only gave you 2 days last time. But let us know what you think about the game, too. We'll read your comments on the air, and you can just let us know how you think the dreaded handshake game is going to go down. For Brendan Riley, this is Tommy Riles, and we will see you guys next week. Go Lions.